I'm 5 years old, and we've just driven a gazillion, trillion, billion hours from our house in the forest to Nanny's house in the big city of Toronto. It's only a 2.5-hour drive, but kid time. Now, Nanny is my mom's mom, but she doesn't want to be called grandma. She thinks grandma sounds too old. So I call her Nanny, and Nanny is my favorite person in the whole wide world. So my dad parks the car, and I fling open the door, and my mom yells, "Watch out for cars!" We're not from the city, so I'm not used to things like traffic and sirens and the tap water. It's horrible. It tastes like a swimming pool. So my mom, who's pregnant with my little sister, helps my 2-year-old brother out of his car seat, and my dad takes the suitcases, and we all head over to the 14-story apartment complex where Nanny lives. Now, naturally, I get to push all the buttons. So first is the button to Nanny's apartment. It buzzes up there, and then she unlocks the door, and then I run inside, and I push the up button for the elevator, and we all get inside, and when I push the number 14 to get to her floor, the doors close, the elevator lurches, and my stomach feels like it's sinking as we go up, up, up. The doors open, I dash out, I turn left, I race as fast as I can down the hall, and at the very end, there she is. Great big smile, her arms open wide, her hug is as sweet as honey. I love visiting Nanny for so many reasons. Firstly, she always has a present for me. This time, it's a new outfit for my Barbie doll and some chocolate coins. I also love TV at Nanny's house because it's city TV. There's like 1 trillion channels, and one of them always has Sesame Street playing. Nanny's place smells way better than our place. Our place kind of smells like cat pee and sawdust and mold. Nanny's place smells like cake and strawberries. And everything here is pink. Everything, even the walls. The walls have this pink striped wallpaper, and the couch is pink, and all her clothes are pink. But the main reason why I love to visit Nanny is because I like being with Nanny. When I'm with Nanny, I feel so safe. When I'm with Nanny, bad things don't happen. When Nanny's with me, my dad is very polite, and he smiles, and he talks in a low, quiet, gentle voice, and I know he's just pretending, but it's okay because when Nanny's around, I'm not as afraid of him. In the late afternoon, Nanny gets out this big barrel of wooden blocks of all different colors for me and my brother to play with, and she dumps them into the middle of the living room, and then she goes into the kitchen to make us some supper. So me and my brother, we get started, and I'm building a big, beautiful, magical bridge. It's for Care Bears and My Little Ponies only. But my brother keeps knocking it over, and now he's stolen the big, long green block that I need for my bridge. So I just reach out and take it back. And of course, he screams, and that's when my dad looks over at me, and he glares. And he says, "Nisha, why don't you just do us all a favor and don't be yourself?" And it's just words. It's just words, but it really hurts. Like here. It's like my chest is full of smoke all of a sudden. And when Nanny calls us for dinner, she's made my favorite dinner, which is macaroni and cheese, but it's kind of hard to eat because my throat hurts. I can't swallow properly because I'm trying not to cry. And later that night, I can hear the adults talking, but I can't get to sleep. And so I lie in bed, and when it's quiet, when the adults have all gone to bed, I sneak out and I go into Nanny's room. And I find her at her kitchen sink in the bathroom. She's wearing a long, flowing pink nightgown, and she's putting her pink false teeth into a glass of water. And she looks over and she sees me and she says, "Darling Nisha, you can't sleep?" And she takes me into the kitchen, we tiptoe, and she makes me this big warm milk, a mug of warm milk with honey in it to help me sleep. And she lets me sleep with her in her bed that night. And she's so warm and cozy. And I don't tell her about what my dad said because, well, I'm not sure if it's a thing to tell. I mean, it's just words. It's just words, and what if those words are true? So I don't tell her, but I cuddle in close, and she falls asleep, and I listen to her breathing, and it's long and steady with a little pop. When I'm 8 years old, Nanny announces that she's going to take me and my brother and sister for a week each at her cottage. So I get to spend an entire week alone with Nanny. And it is paradise. She takes me on a ride on this historical steamship thing. And we go to my favorite restaurant, McDonald's. And I swim in the lake every single day. Nanny sits on this lawn chair with a big straw sun hat, and she chants, 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go. And that's when I race down the dock and jump into the lake. The neighbors are at their cottage too. And I guess Nanny knows them because the man's coming over and he has a little girl. He introduces himself. His name is Michelle. And his little daughter's name is Sophie. And Sophie's only 2 years old. But I can play with her. We just splash around in the shallow water. And Michelle and Nanny talk. And at a certain point, Michelle asks Nanny if I'd like to come over and play with Sophie for a little while at their place. And Nanny looks at me and she asks if that's something I would want to do. It is not something I would want to do because I want to stay here and I want to spend time with Nanny and jump off the dock. But I don't want to be rude, so I nod my head and Nanny gets up and goes back into the cottage and I go over to play with Sophie. And she's 2, like I said, so there's not a lot we can do. We're just kind of splashing around in the shallow water. But the wind starts to pick up and I start getting cold. I have goosebumps on my arms. And that's when Michelle comes over. And he says, "Gosh, you're cold." And that's when he starts like putting his hands kind of on my body and rubbing like on my chest and on my legs. And he's saying, "You're so cold. You're so cold. This is going to warm you up. This will warm you up." But it doesn't make me feel warm. It makes me feel weird and bad, like something is wrong. And later that night, I can't get warm. I am so cold. I'm shivering and shivering. And Nanny lets me sleep in her bed that night. She's so warm. And I don't tell her what happened with Michelle because I don't know if it's really a thing to tell. I mean, he was just trying to keep me warm, I guess. So I just cuddle in close to Nanny and sort of bask in her warmth. But for the first time, her warmth feels like fragile or something. It feels like something that I could lose. The next year, we're supposed to go back to the cottage with Nanny, but she's not feeling up to it. She'd had a fall that year and a bout of shingles. And so my mom says, "Well, okay, we'll take each one of the kids, we'll take you to Nanny's for the weekend. We'll take turns." So my brother gets to go first. And I'm annoyed because I really want to go. But also, bad things happen when my mom leaves. And only about 2 hours after my mom and my brother leave the driveway, my dad gets into his pickup truck and he drives away. He doesn't tell me where he's going. And he doesn't come back. And by the time I'm ready for bed, he's still not back. So I go to bed. And in the middle of the night, the phone rings. Remember those middle of the night phone calls? We don't get them anymore because we can turn our phones off. But they used to happen. And this was my first experience with that middle of the night phone call. And as you're probably aware, no one is calling in the middle of the night to tell you something awesome. But I didn't know that at the time. So I'm just tired and I'm stumbling out of bed and my head is foggy with fatigue. I answer, hello? Nisha? I'm at the police station and the police are my friends. You can laugh, it's okay. I'm not very old. I'm only about 9, but I know what's going on. I know my dad doesn't have new best friends that are cops. He was drinking and driving, and he got arrested. And because of that fateful night, he has lost his license. So, a few weekends later, when my mom takes my sister to go see Nanny, Dad has to drink at home because he can't go anywhere. So the next morning, he is hungover, not a good scene, very irritable, and unfortunately, he's lying on the couch in the middle of the living room, very central location. And my brother and I are aware of the situation, and we are trying very hard to be very quiet, not make any sound, not set him off in any way. But at a certain moment, my brother does something, I don't know what. All I know is my dad is racing into my brother's room, and I hear a crash, and I hear him scream, and then I hear another crash and another scream, and I race to my brother's room, and there's my dad going after my brother again. His eyes, it's like he's in a trance, or like he's crazed, but then he sees me, and he kind of snaps out of it, and he looks at me, and then he comes towards me, and he kicks me out of his way. Not hard, but almost as if I was just a piece of garbage in his path. And he goes down the hall, and he goes down the stairs, and he goes into his room and closes the door. I don't tell anybody about what happened with my dad because I don't know if it's a thing to tell. I don't know what's normal. I don't know what happens in other people's homes. And it's not like our bones are broken. We're not in the hospital. And it's not like it happens every day. Every day isn't bad, but what is bad is that you never know when something's going to happen. So it's this idea that something could happen at any moment, that's what's bad. That's what kind of follows me around like smoke, and it makes it hard to breathe, and it makes it hard to be happy. So after years of not telling anybody anything, I just kind of stopped talking at around age 12. I just sort of disengaged. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go to school, and I don't care about my friends, and I don't see the point. And then one evening, the phone rings, and this time it's Nanny, and she's calling for me. And I didn't tell her that I was in trouble. I didn't tell anybody, but somehow maybe she knows because she tells me, Nisha, I've been thinking about you. And I know you've always loved the violin, but is that something you would want to learn? Because Nanny would like to pay for your lessons if you do. That blows my mind. I mean, it's true, the violin and me would always had a thing. Like, the very first time I ever saw someone playing the violin, I was so mesmerized. It seemed like the most magical thing a person could do, but it never occurred to me that I could do that. My parents could hardly afford food most of the time, so violin lessons, they weren't a thing. But now they were a thing. Because Nanny paid for my violin lessons, and I had this violin teacher who became my mentor, and I learned so quickly because I was meant to play this instrument. And my teacher even said, I think you must have played this instrument in another lifetime. I loved practicing, I loved playing, and by age 14, I'd reached a level where I could join a string orchestra. And at the same time, Nanny starts confusing me with other people. She starts calling me Wendy and Betty, Joanne. At age 16, I joined a rock and roll band in high school. And at the same time, Nanny starts talking about her husband, who had died many years before, as if he's still alive. At age 18, I win a music scholarship for university. And at the same time, Nanny moves into a nursing home so she can get the care that she needs, that she can't give to herself anymore. And I go and visit her there. And I see that she's confined to a wheelchair. And she's pale and thin, and she's confused and anxious, and she wants to know, why am I here, and where's my husband? When can I leave? Why? I want to go home. So I get out my violin, because I brought it with me, and I start playing for her. I play through this slow movement of a concerto that I've been working on. And as I play for her, I think about telling her just how much music means to me, like how she's completely transformed my life, and how I will tell her that everything good in my life now I can trace back to the violin, how it helped me find my voice again, and it helped me find my confidence. And I even stood up to my dad. I'm not even afraid of him anymore. And I want to tell her about him. I want to tell her all about the bad days with my dad and all the mean things that he would say. And I want to tell her about the creep at the cottage. They were all things to tell. And when I finish the piece, Nanny looks at me and she smiles and she says, "Very nice, dear." And she doesn't know who I am. I'm just a random person playing the violin, and I will never be able to tell her all the things there were to tell. So, I'm telling you instead. And what I can say for certain is that that last scene with Nanny in her nursing home is not at all the way that she would want me to remember her, or you. And it's not how I want you to remember her. So let's go back to the beginning. We get in the elevator. I push number 14. The doors close, the elevator lurches, my stomach sinks, so we go up, up, up. The doors open, I leap out, I turn left, I race as fast as I can to the end of the hall, and there she is waiting for me. A huge smile, arms open wide, her hug as sweet as honey. My favorite person in the whole wide world. Nanny.